The history of India includes the prehistoric settlements and societies in the Indian subcontinent, the blending of the Indus Valley civilization and Indo-Aryan culture into the Vedic civilization, the development of Hinduism as a synthesis of various Indian cultures and traditions, the rise of Jainism and Buddhism as a kind of revolt against Brahmanism, the onset of a succession of powerful dynasties and empires for more than 2 millennia throughout various geographic areas of the subcontinent, including the growth of Muslim dynasties during the medieval period intertwined with Hindu powers, the advent of European traders resulting in the establishment of the British rule, and the subsequent independence movement that led to the partition of India and the creation of the Republic of India. Evidence of anatomically modern humans in the Indian subcontinent is recorded as long as 75,000 years ago, or with earlier hominids including Homo erectus from about 500,000 years ago. But the Indus Valley civilization, which spread and flourished in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent from c. 3200 to 1300 BCE in present-day Pakistan and northwest India, was the first major civilization in South Asia. A sophisticated and technologically advanced urban culture developed in the mature Harappan period, from 2600 to 1900 BCE. This civilization collapsed at the start of the second millennium BCE and was later followed by the Iron Age Vedic civilization, which extended over much of the Indo-Gangetic plain and which witnessed the rise of major polities known as the Mahajanapadas. In one of these kingdoms, Magadha, Mahavira and Gautama Buddha propagated their Shramanic philosophies during the 5th and 6th century BCE. Most of the subcontinent was conquered by the Maurya Empire during the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE. From the 3rd century BC onwards, Prakrit and Pali literature in the north and the Sangam literature in southern India started to flourish. Wood steel originated in South India in the 3rd century BC and was exported to foreign countries. Various parts of India were ruled by numerous dynasties for the next 1,500 years, among which the Gupta Empire stands out. This period, witnessing a Hindu religious and intellectual resurgence, is known as the Classical or Golden Age of India. During this period, aspects of Indian civilization, administration, culture, and religion spread to much of Asia. While kingdoms in southern India had maritime business links with the Roman Empire from around 77 CE, Indian cultural influence spread over many parts of Southeast Asia, which led to the establishment of Indianized kingdoms in Southeast Asia. The most significant event between the 7th and 11th century was the tripartite struggle centered on Kanayu that lasted for more than 2 centuries, between the Pala Empire, Rashtrakuta Empire, and Gurjara Pratihara Empire. Southern India was ruled by the Chalukya, Chola, Pallava, Pandyan, and Western Chalukya empires. The 7th century also saw the advent of Islam as a political power, though as a fringe, in the western part of the subcontinent. In modern-day Pakistan, the Chola dynasty conquered southern India and successfully invaded parts of Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, Maldives and Bengal in the 11th century. The early medieval period Indian mathematics influenced the development of mathematics and astronomy in the Arab world, and the Hindu numerals were introduced. Muslim rule started in parts of North India in the 13th century when the Delhi Sultanate was founded in 1206 CE by the Central Asian Turks. The Delhi Sultanate ruled the major part of northern India in the early 14th century, but declined in the late 14th century when several powerful Hindu states such as the Vijayanagara Empire, Gajapati Kingdom, Ahom Kingdom, as well as Rajput dynasties and states, such as Mewar dynasty, emerged. The 15th century saw the emergence of Sikhism. In the 16th century, Mughals came from Central Asia and gradually covered most of India. The Mughal Empire suffered a gradual decline in the early 18th century, which provided opportunities for the Maratha Empire. Sikh Empire and Mysore Kingdom to exercise control over large areas of the subcontinent. From the late 18th century to mid-19th century, large areas of India were annexed by the British East India Company of British Empire. Dissatisfaction with company rule led to the Indian Rebellion of 1857, after which the British provinces of India were directly administered by the British Crown and witnessed a period of both rapid development of infrastructure and economic stagnation. During the first half of the 20th century, a nationwide struggle for independence was launched, with the leading party involved being the Indian National Congress, which was later joined by other organizations. The subcontinent gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1947, after the British provinces were partitioned into the dominions of India and Pakistan, and the princely states all acceded to one of the new states. Chronology of Indian history. James Mill, in his The History of British India, distinguished three phases in the history of India, namely Hindu, Muslim and British civilizations. This periodization has been influential, but has also been criticized for the misconceptions it gave rise to. Another influential periodization is the division into ancient, classical, medieval and modern periods. Although this periodization has also been criticized, Romi Lathapa notes that the division into Hindu, Muslim, British periods of Indian history gives too much weight to ruling dynasties and foreign invasions, neglecting the social-economic history which often showed a strong continuity. The division into ancient, medieval, modern periods overlooks the fact that the Muslim conquests occurred gradually, during which time many things came and went off, while the South was never completely conquered. According to Thapa, a periodization could also be based on significant social and economic changes, which are not strictly related to a change of ruling powers. Prehistoric Era. Stone Age. Isolated remains of Homo erectus in Hathnora in the Narmada Valley in central India indicate that India might have been inhabited since at least the Middle Pleistocene era, somewhere between 500,000 and 200,000 years ago. Tools crafted by proto-humans that have been dated back 2 million years have been discovered in the northwestern part of the subcontinent. The ancient history of the region includes some of South Asia's oldest settlements and some of its major civilizations. The earliest archaeological site in the subcontinent is the Paleolithic hominid site in the Sone River Valley. Saonian sites are found in the Sivalak region across what are now India, Pakistan, and Nepal. The Mesolithic period in the Indian subcontinent was followed by the Neolithic period, when more extensive settlement of the subcontinent occurred after the end of the last ice age approximately 12,000 years ago. The first confirmed semi-permanent settlements appeared 9,000 years ago in the Bhimbetka rock shelters in modern Madhya Pradesh, India. Early Neolithic culture in South Asia is represented by the Birana findings in Haryana, India, and Meghar findings in Balochistan, Pakistan. Traces of a Neolithic culture have been alleged to be submerged in the Gulf of Kumbit in India, radiocarbon dated to 7500 BCE. Neolithic agricultural culture sprang up in the Indus Valley region around 5000 BCE, in the lower Gangetic Valley around 3000 BCE, and in later South India, spreading southwards and also northwards into Malwa around 1800 BCE. The first urban civilization of the region began with the Indus Valley Civilization. Indus Valley Civilization. The Bronze Age in the Indian subcontinent began around 3300 BCE with the early Indus Valley Civilization. It was centered on the Indus River and its tributaries, which extended into the Ghaggar-Hakra River Valley, the Ganges, Yamuna, Doab, Gujarat, and southeastern Afghanistan. The civilization was primarily located in modern-day India and Pakistan. Historically part of ancient India, it is one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, along with Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. inhabitants of the ancient Indus River Valley, the Harappans, developed new techniques in metallurgy and handicraft, and produced copper, bronze, lead, and tin. The mature Indus civilization flourished from about 2600 to 1900 BCE, marking the beginning of urban civilization on the subcontinent. The civilization included urban centers such as Dholavira, Kalibangan, Ropar, Rakhigarh, and Lothal in modern-day India, and Harappa, Ganeriwala, and Mohenjo-Daro in modern-day Pakistan. The civilization is noted for its cities built of brick, roadside drainage system, and multi-storied houses, and is thought to have had some kind of municipal organization. During the late period of this civilization, signs of a gradual decline began to emerge, and by around 1700 BCE, most of the cities were abandoned. However, the Indus Valley civilization did not disappear suddenly, and some elements of the Indus civilization may have survived, especially in the smaller villages and isolated farms. The Indian copper hoard culture is attributed to this time, associated in the Durb region with the ochre-colored pottery. Vedic period. The Vedic period is named after the Indo-Aryan culture of northwest India, although other parts of India had a distinct cultural identity during this period. The Vedic culture is described in the texts of Vedas, still sacred to Hindus, which were orally composed in Vedic Sanskrit. The Vedas are some of the oldest extant texts in India. The Vedic period, lasting from about 1750 to 500 BCE, and contributed the foundations of several cultural aspects of Indian subcontinent. In terms of culture, many regions of the subcontinent transitioned from the Chalcolithic to the Iron Age in this period. Vedic society historians have analyzed the Vedas to posit a Vedic culture in the Punjab region and the Upper Gangetic Plain. Most historians also consider this period to have encompassed several waves of Indo-Aryan migration into the subcontinent from the northwest. The peepal tree and cow were sanctified by the time of the Atharva Veda. Many of the concepts of Indian philosophy espoused later, like Dharma, Karma, etc., trace their root to the Vedas. Early Vedic society is described in the Rig Veda, the oldest Vedic text believed to have been compiled during 2nd millennium BCE, in the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent. At this time, Aryan society consisted of largely tribal and pastoral groups, distinct from the Harappan urbanization which had been abandoned. The early Indo-Aryan presence probably corresponds, in part, to the ochre-colored pottery culture in archaeological contexts. At the end of the Rig Vedic period, the Aryan society began to expand from the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent into the western Ganges plain. It became increasingly agricultural and was socially organized around the hierarchy of the four varnas, or social classes. This social structure was characterized both by syncretizing with the native cultures of northern India, but also eventually by the excluding of indigenous peoples by labeling their occupations impure. During this period, many of the previous small tribal units and chiefdoms began to coalesce into monarchical, state-level polities. Sanskritization. Since Vedic times, people from many strata of society throughout the subcontinent tended to adapt their religious and social life to Brahmanic norms, a process sometimes called Sanskritization. It is reflected in the tendency to identify local deities with the gods of the Sanskrit texts. The Kuru kingdom was the first state-level society of the Vedic period, corresponding to the beginning of the Iron Age in northwestern India, around 1200 to 800 BCE, as well as with the composition of the Atharva Veda. The Kuru state organized the Vedic hymns into collections, and developed the orthodox S-Rota ritual to uphold the social order. When the Kuru kingdom declined, the center of Vedic culture shifted to their eastern neighbors, the Panchula kingdom. The archaeological painted grey-ware culture, which flourished in the Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh regions of northern India from about 1100 to 600 BCE, is believed to correspond to the Kuru and Panchala kingdoms. During the late Vedic period, the kingdom of India emerged as a new center of Vedic culture, situated even farther to the east. The later part of this period corresponds with the consolidation of increasingly large states and kingdoms, called Mahajanapadas, all across northern India. Sanskrit epics. In addition to the Vedas, the principal texts of Hinduism, the core themes of the Sanskrit epics Ramayana and Mahabharata are said to have their ultimate origins during this period. The Mahabharata remains, today, the longest single poem in the world. Historians formerly postulated an epic age as the milieu of these two epic poems, but now recognize that the texts went through multiple stages of development over centuries. For instance, the Mahabharata may have been based on a small-scale conflict which was eventually transformed into a gigantic epic war by bards and poets. There is no conclusive proof from archaeology as to whether the specific events of the Mahabharata have any historical basis. The existing texts of these epics are believed to belong to the post-Vedic age, between c. 400 BCE and 400 CE. Some even attempted to date the events using methods of archaeoastronomy which have produced, depending on which passages are chosen and how they are interpreted, estimated dates ranging up to mid-2nd millennium BCE.